Hey good people, welcome back to Beauty in the Frizz. My name is Cara. Whether you're new or returning, thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me for another one today. Kind of a special video because over the weekend I did my typical purchase or pass makeup protection program, and I found that afterwards I was still trying to talk myself into or out of 2 releases. So I want to talk about them today and how I'm feeling about them, whether or not I am going to purchase them. So if that sounds good to you and you want to dive in a little deeper with some new makeup, keep watching this video. Let me know what you think. And if makeup is your therapy and your love, if it makes you happy and you want to hang out with someone that feels the same way, definitely consider joining the community. I'd love to have you back. All right, let's get started. So I zoomed in a little closer today. There we go. I did not feel like doing my makeup today. It is about 6 o'clock on Sunday evening. I'm not going to work tomorrow because I'm taking Marky to the doctor's, and I already took my shower. I was like, I really don't feel like it. The video I was about to film is my Dior collection. I had one of my friends on here ask to share what I have from Dior since they are now in Ulta. So that video is going to be coming. I'm going to film that really soon. But I want to go ahead and kind of recap 2 releases from the weekend and tell you how I'm feeling about them after the fact. So let's dive in. Now, these 2 releases are very popular. You saw them on the thumbnail. And let's go ahead and start with the Too Faced Italian Spritz palette. I'm going to pop a picture up so you can see what it looks like, probably over here since I'm going this way. The reason that I wanted to have this video up sooner than later is because the reviews are already coming in. And I'm going to tell you that I was going to Ulta today to most likely purchase that palette. I said I was gonna go see it in person, but I know I most likely would have left with that palette. So I ended up not going because I really had to sit down and like think about everything, because I'm not trying to make any frivolous makeup purchases.
She got her nails done.
Hey girl, it's Casey girl. You know August's best friend Casey if you missed her on the last one.
I'm strong.
Oh, you did a dunk?
I'm
cool.
Strong, Mom.
Cool, you are. All right.
Where's the juicy?
All right, so yeah, I was on my way to Ulta. I did see one review. I think it was Makeup with Cheryl. She's not someone I'm subscribed to, but when I looked up the palette, that's the review that came up. And by the end of the day, or now, there are several reviews up. My friend Yadi from Yadi Beauty did a live with the palette. Heather Austin has a review up, and is it Stacy's Makeup Stash? Steffi's Makeup Stash? Those are the reviews that I've seen up, and there are going to be plenty more. So I want to talk about why I talked myself out of this. Number 1, I've only had one Too Faced palette. It was okay. I can't remember which one it was, but it was one of the ones in the tin packaging. And we all know that Too Faced pretty much comes out with the same types of releases over and over again. I think the intrigue to this palette is that it is something different, but I never really hear people rave about Too Faced palettes. So I came to the conclusion for myself that my intrigue with the palette was more out of curiosity because it was a different color story. And I think that really jaded whether I was really into that particular color story, or was it something that was going to be truly special or add to my collection, if that makes sense. It was just the fact that it was something different. And I think that's the allure for many of us that are interested in that palette. Unless you are a Too Faced stan, I just don't hear anybody saying, I really hope Too Faced gets it together. I feel like a lot of us pretty much aren't checking for Too Faced, and honestly have given up on the brand. Kind of how I feel about Urban Decay. You know, people were intrigued by the Smiley palettes. I wasn't. They need to leave. But people were intrigued because they had these pops of color and it was something a little bit different. but I don't think from what I've seen those palettes are anything to really write home about. The other thing I had to think about was, how much am I really gonna wear that palette? I have been more into neutrals. I've been doing more simplistic looks. There are days where I'm just using bronzer for eyeshadow. And do I really want this palette in my palette count? And I really had to say, no, I really don't. So what I did was I pulled out some of my more colorful palettes to just see, like, do I like that Too Faced Color Story better than these? Why was I intrigued about the palette beyond it being something different for that brand? So by it being something different for that brand, I don't think it's really something different, you know, in the makeup streets that we haven't seen before. It's just different for Too Faced. So let me just pull out a couple of palettes that kind of have that option of doing something neutral, but having those pops if you want to, that I was gonna say that I enjoy. There's one palette here where it's a love-hate. And then there was one color in that Too Faced palette that really stood out to me, and I was like, oh, this reminds me of a shade in another palette that I have. So let me just show you what I have and stop talking. Well, I'm gonna keep talking, but you know what I'm saying, so you can really see what I'm talking about. Yeah, let's just do it. Now I just want to also mention, these are not dupes for this Italian Spritz palette by any means. These are just palettes that came to mind when I started searching through my collection to see what this might possibly add. So first I have the Natasha Denona Circo Loco palette. I'm starting with this. This is the one where we have the love-hate relationship, honey, okay? I have tried to maneuver the shades around. I have taken them out. I've put other things in. The reason that I picked this palette was looking at some of those mattes in the Italian Spritz. You have some oranges here, some pinks. There are these pops of blues in that palette. And now this palette at the same time is not one that's going to give you a bunch of like neutral looks that you can do in that Too Faced palette. But some of these colors just reminded me of colors that were in that palette, and they're colors that I'm probably not gonna wear much because I don't know, this palette, me and this palette, it's just we've had a rough ride. We've had a rough ride. Not that the quality's bad or anything like that. So I wanted to bring this one out because I was thinking about like my colorful palettes. I for damn sure will go for Circo Loco over Too Faced. I'm gonna go for Tatcha any day over Too Faced because I just know the quality is good. Where I hear the quality of the Too Faced palettes can be very hit or miss. Now the ones in the tin packaging, apparently these are the good ones. This is a good formula. I don't have enough knowledge to say whether or not that is true. So there is that. Now I did see Yachty and what was her name? Makeup by Cheryl. They both had a problem with one of the deep plummy shades, and I have tons of those deep plummy shades in my Pat McGrath palettes. And you all know Pat McGrath mattes are some of the best mattes that are out there. And see, at my age, I'm 42. I don't have time for just subpar mattes in my life. I don't have money to pay for subpar mattes in a palette. I just don't. So that, even though it might have only been one, that already just kind of talked me out of it because I don't have time for anything to be just okay. We don't have time. One palette that I do have that has neutrals and pops of colors is the Amore Mariposas palette from Melt Cosmetics. This palette was a palette that took me about a year to love, but I do. And this is a palette, even though the blues aren't the same, they've got these blues here, like this blue-green that I'm not gonna use a lot, but if I want it, it's there. Then you have these kind of neutrally shades. Some of these mattes kind of remind me of the ones in the Too Faced palette, but these mattes are excellent. They are excellent, and I can do both neutral and colorful looks. And these colors, these kind of earthy colors, these are more of my color story than the ones in the Too Faced palette. So I was like, yes, this one is so great. I'm just so glad I decided to not go to Ulta today because here's the deal with me. Most of the things that I get online. I have to wait. And it's a special occasion for me to go into a store, to go into an Ulta, to go into a Sephora. So when I leave, I always want to come out with something because it's very rare that I go into one of those stores and leave. Well, it's very rare that I go into the store, but then to go in and leave with something is even better. I have been doing the Sephora same day. I'm doing the free trial with that. I don't want to get carried away because all my birthday money is pretty much gone except one gift card. So I have enjoyed my little bit of using that same day service, but that's also cool. It's like that instant gratification that I usually have to wait for. So I think that's another part of the intrigue with me being able to go and get the palette when I saw that it was at the Ulta that's close to me. So just wanted to share Amore Mary Poses. Now I know Amore Mary Poses is discontinued, and I also know that Natasha Denona Circo Loco is a $125 palette versus the $54 for the Too Faced one, but I'm just sharing what I have in my collection. And you may have some similar palettes, you may have these palettes, you may have something that I don't have. So this is just encouragement to, you know, don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe or be boo-boo the fool because we were just excited that Too Faced decided to do something different. You know what I'm saying? I also was looking at my Merry Christmas palette from Odin's Eye, and I pulled this out again. Not the same color story at all, but I'm thinking about palettes where I can do a wearable everyday look, but then do something that's really special or have those pops of color. I know the Too Faced palette had an iridescent, like purpley shade, almost really similar to this actually. And this doesn't have the blues, it has the greens, but I was just kind of looking at the neutral mattes, the kind of, this is like a more of a burgundy matte, but I was thinking about that plum, just thinking like, what else do I have? And I would for sure reach for this over the Too Faced one. The Too Faced one is more like Barbie-like. It's got a lot of like bright pink, you know. So this, I'm trying to think about like what goes with my aesthetic and my color story and my vibe. And I would say this one does. I don't have your phone. Okay. I did not take it away. So go ahead. The last palette I want to share is a warm neutral palette, no pops of color, but there was a shade in the Too Faced palette that reminded me of a shade in another palette I had, and it's the Melt Rust palette, and I was thinking about the shade Erode. I think the shade in the Too Faced palette is more of an orange, where this is more of a mustard. But when I pulled this out just to kind of compare it, oh my gosh, Erode, this is like one of the best mustard yellow colors, if not the best mustard yellow color that I own in my collection. I've had this palette for 3 years now, and it's just a great mustardy yellow shade. And I love this. I would wholeheartedly go for this shade over any of those oranges. So, I mean, I could always pull this out, but I just had to look through my collection to figure out the intrigue. So I am hoping that this is helpful to you all. All right, because I don't want to hold y'all too long. Let's get into the second release. Now the second release, I'm going to pop a picture up. It is the Chanel Blush Face Palettes. I know a lot of us are tempted by these, and it's down to the packaging and how it looks. It's this beautiful, oversized luxury experience, and it feels good in the hand. You feel special putting it on. I'm not gonna lie, like at all. I get caught up in that sometimes because, you know, we're all human and there's certain things that we like, and who doesn't like to have a luxe experience from time to time? However, I really had to talk myself out of it. Now, this morning, I was this close to ordering one of them. And I had decided on the light one, the Tendress. I'm not sure if I know I'm not pronouncing it right. And I decided on that one over the deep one because I had seen someone with a similar complexion to me swatch all of them. I liked that there was a coral shade in that blush and like a brown that I could use to bronze. I just thought that was great. Maybe more of a contour because it looked like more of a cool tone brown, but either way, it looked like it would show up on me. I talked myself out of the deeper one because I have, this is my very first Chanel Quad Candor at Seduction. And what I was looking at is that this is so similar to that blush quad. I could probably, I know it might be a stretch because these little pants are super duper small, but I could probably use these as blushes. I'm gonna have to try it out, but I have a pretty good feeling that I could use these as blushes. In the lightest quad, there was a like pink highlighter. I have it right here. Like, it's this shade. Might be a little bit off, but like, who really cares? I could use this as a highlighter. So there was no need. In the deep quad, there was a gold highlighter. I already knew I did not want that. And I have a gold highlighter. I think we all have a gold highlighter, but I would prefer this pinky one. So this kind of negated me getting either of those blush quads. But then I was like, ooh, that coral shade. Like, I really like that. And I'm saying that like I don't have any coral blushes because I do. Oh, and I meant to pull out the two Chanel blushes that I have, but those blushes really have nothing to do with that blush quad, totally different formulas. So I'll just grab them so you can see them, but just for reference, but they're kind of like apples and oranges to me. So let me grab them because they're right here on my dresser. So I have the blush Comet. This was the one that had the star and like the sea, and it was like kind of reflective, but that has since worn off. But this is kind of a peachy coral blush that I really love. So I do have a Chanel corally type blush, and that's great. Then I have the Chains de Chanel blush. This one is a shimmery blush, and I love this one too, very much. And that's what that one looks like. It's very beautiful blush. Kind of giving me Raw Honey by Melt vibes. Wish I thought about that. Kind of, but not really. But that's not what talked me out of it. Something said, Cara, go look at your Charlotte Tilbury blush palette that you got for the holiday that you said you need to use more. And I got the deepest one. I was like, because either that one or the other one, I don't have the lighter one, has a coral blush shade. I can't say it. And lo and behold, when I looked at this beautifying face palette, not only does it have, if I can get it open, the coral and the red, you've got the two highlighters here. This highlighter is so beautiful. It is kind of a peachy pink. And you have this one, which is almost like a champagne pink that's gonna be pretty similar, not exact, but pretty similar to the one in the Chanel palette. And this palette, I felt like was expensive, $75. I don't know if the amount of product is more or less. I have a suspicion that the Charlotte Tilbury palette has more in it, but I don't know because of, you know, how the pans are. The Chanel pans are kind of that domed, almost like a baked looking formula, whereas these are flat, and I don't know what kind of formula this is. I do know that this is good though. I do know that it hasn't been used a lot. I do know you can see all the embossings on here. So I don't want to say I don't have any business buying the Chanel one, but I'm saying that I have something that I like, that I want to use. And so I'm not really sure what benefit it would be for me to buy the Chanel one anymore. I would like to try that blush formula. I do think it might be different than the ones that I have. but those are not going to be the colors. They're going to have to come out with something else. And I know they do have single blushes like that, so it's not anything that I need to rush and get or pay $90 for. The thing with Chanel is, even when Macy's and Nordstrom and all these places have sales, Chanel is usually not included in those sales. You can get them on Dior and some other luxury brands, but Chanel is usually excluded. So from that collection, I did get that new Balm Essential Stick, and that's what I said that I would most likely get, and I did stick with that. Although at first I was like, oh, I can just go back and order the palette later, you know, if I change my mind, because shipping's free. But I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I really thought about it. So this kind of reflection process of going into my collection and thinking about what I have is really important to me, and just trying not to get caught up in the hype of like, oh, I just have to have it, because a lot of times, I don't know, I think we just have to really assess like why we want things. Sometimes there might not be a reason, and I'm not even saying like if somebody has this and then they get the Chanel one, like that they're being frivolous. Like, we want what we want. But we all have different goals for ourselves. And so with me, it's like, I really want to use the things in my collection, but I also have a problem remembering everything. So this practice is helpful for me. I could have brought this palette out and said, oh, but it doesn't have the bronzer in it. And that might have made me change my mind and say, you know what, go ahead and get the Chanel. It's going to be something different enough. But when I think about it, I don't think it's different enough for me personally. So this isn't like a thing to say like, don't get this or anything like that, because I still kind of want it, but it would just be really a waste. I would be interested though with, like I said, maybe a different color story, but this one's just way too similar. And I mean, the reality is, I have blushes in every color and pretty much every formula. Cream blush, stick blush. I have the House Lab blushes, Pat McGrath. Like, I have every color that there is. So any blush that I get is probably, you know, not necessary. But if I can save $90 because I have something that's so close, and either put that towards a makeup purchase that I really want, or that's gonna give me something different and not like a fleeting joy, I wanna do that. Or better yet, not spend it at all. So that's kind of why I wanted to do a deep dive into these two releases, because I think that one, as I was saying, the Too Faced palette, every content creator that I've seen in the past couple of days that did a new makeup releases video, there was nobody that was like, no. There was nobody that was like, huh, like that just didn't even mention it, because it caught everybody's eye. Just like people mentioned the Urban Decay ones, because it's something different for the brand. So for me, it's become important for me to be this analytical, and for others, it might not even matter, and that's fine. But if you're in kind of the same mindset as me right now, I do hope that this video was helpful and that it spoke to you and helped you make a decision like for or against, because we work hard for our money and we want to make sure that we're putting it to things that we're really going to enjoy. So that's going to be it for this video. Let me know if you want to see any more deep dives into new makeup releases, and if you have any in particular that you want me to do a deep dive into, please let me know. I would love to do that. Thank you so much for taking out some of your time and hanging out with me for another one today. I hope this was therapy for you. It always is for me. And until I see you again, make sure you are being gentle with yourself. Talk to yourself nice, stay safe, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.